now by the Shadow Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson. Hi, thanks for joining us on the programme this morning. Much appreciated. What should happen next as far as the Sue Gray report is concerned? Should we see all of it?
We should see all of it, but I don't think we need Sue Gray to tell us what is absolutely clear to the British people, which is that the Prime Minister has lied and lied and lied again. He's taken us all for fools, treated the British people with complete contempt.
Before we dive in, if you appreciate no-nonsense analysis of Westminster's power plays, hit that subscribe button now. You'll want to be here for what's coming next. Right? Let's cut through the noise. While Starmer navigates the treacherous waters of government popularity ratings and policy delivery, there's a rather fascinating contest brewing within Labour's upper echelons that could fundamentally reshape how workers' rights are defended in this country. And it all centers on one woman making a promise that's either brilliantly calculated or delightfully audacious. Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, has just thrown down the gauntlet in the deputy leadership race with a declaration that's sending ripples through Westminster and Union headquarters alike. She's pledging to be the government's immovable champion for workers' rights, vowing to ensure the Employment Rights Bill is delivered in full, with no IFS or buts. Now, that's quite the statement, isn't it? Especially when you consider the rather uncomfortable whispers that have been circulating about certain Downing Street strategists getting cold feet after business groups started rattling their expensive jewelry. Here's where it gets properly interesting. Phillipson isn't just making vague promises about supporting workers. She's explicitly stating she'll personally grab the employment rights reform that Angela Rayner championed and ensure it doesn't get watered down. That's a direct commitment, a public stake in the ground, and frankly, the kind of political courage that become rather rare in modern British politics. She's positioning herself as Rayner's natural successor in protecting the union's interests at the cabinet table, which is no small claim given Rayner's reputation as an absolute bulldog on these matters. But let's examine what's actually at stake here, because this isn't just Westminster theatre. The Employment Rights Bill includes measures that would genuinely transform working conditions across Britain. We're talking about banning exploitative zero-hours contracts, ending most instances of fire and rehire, providing day-one protection from unfair dismissal, and safeguarding workers from harassment. These aren't trivial adjustments. These are fundamental shifts in the power dynamic between employers and employees. And that's precisely why some in government are reportedly nervous about business backlash. Now, you might be wondering why Phillipson is making such a bold play. Well, she's facing Lucid Powell in this contest, and the union endorsements are absolutely crucial. The big three unions, Unison, GMB, and Unite, haven't publicly declared their positions yet, which means this race is still genuinely competitive. Phillipson has secured backing from the Musicians' Union, the Community Union, and the National Union of Mine Workers. Meanwhile, Powell has a Communication Workers Union reportedly preparing to back her, along with Enda Burnham and several ministers, including Ed Miliband and Lisa Nandy. This isn't a coronation. This is a proper fight. What makes Phillipson's strategy particularly clever is how she's framing this commitment. She's explicitly drawing a parallel to her confrontation with the private school lobby over tax breaks, positioning herself as someone who doesn't flinch when facing vested interests. That's a rather shrewd bit of political branding, isn't it? She's essentially saying, I took on the establishment once and won, and I'll do it again for workers' rights. It's compelling narrative construction, and it gives her pledge genuine credibility beyond mere words. But here's the tension that makes this entire situation so deliciously complicated. The reshuffle that followed Rayner's departure raised eyebrows precisely because of personnel changes at the business department. Peter Kyle became business secretary, and Justin Matters was sacked as a business minister. Union figures weren't exactly thrilled about this, shall we say. The concern was palpable that the government might be softening its stance on workers' rights to appease business concerns. Kyle has since promised no backsliding on the legislation, but promises from politicians are, well, let's just say they require constant reinforcement. This is where Phillipson's timing becomes rather astute. By making this pledge now, during a deputy leadership contest, she's not just seeking union support for her campaign. She's creating a public mandate that would be politically costly to abandon later. If she wins on the strength of this commitment and then fails to deliver, the political fallout will be catastrophic for both her career and Labour's relationship with unions. It's a high-stakes gamble that demonstrates either remarkable confidence or genuine ideological commitment, possibly both. Chris Kitchen from the NUM put it rather well when he said Phillipson stands with workers and that her pledge underlines why she's the right choice for deputy leader. Joanne Thomas from Osdor emphasized the need for a strong voice at the cabinet table with a personal mandate from unions and workers. Alastair McDiarmid from Community highlighted that Phillipson has consistently shown she respects and values trade unions during her time as Education Secretary. These endorsements aren't just about winning an internal Labour contest. They are about establishing a framework of accountability that would bind her to these commitments if she secures the deputy leadership. Now, let's be absolutely clear about the broader political implications here. Labour's relationship with unions has always been complicated, hasn't it? The party needs union support for funding, organising, and maintaining a connection to working-class voters. But it also faces constant pressure to appear business-friendly and economically credible to middle-class swing voters. This tension has defined Labour politics for decades. Phillipson's pledge is essentially a declaration about which side of that tension she prioritizes, at least on workers' rights specifically. It's a calculated risk that could either strengthen Labour's progressive credentials or create friction with business interests that the government desperately wants to maintain positive relationships with. What's particularly intriguing is how this plays into Starmer's broader governing strategy. The Prime Minister has been walking a tightrope between satisfying Labour's traditional base and appealing to the wider electorate that delivered the party's victory. Phillipson positioning herself as the uncompromising champion of workers' rights could either complement that strategy by allowing Starmer to maintain his more centrist positioning while having a deputy who satisfies the left, or it could create internal tensions if business pressure intensifies and Number 10 starts looking for flexibility on the Employment Rights Bill. The substance of the bill itself deserves serious attention because these measures would represent the most significant expansion of workers' rights in years. Banning the exploitative zero-hours contracts alone would affect hundreds of thousands of workers who currently face scheduling uncertainty and income instability. Day one protection from unfair dismissal would fundamentally alter the employment relationship, giving workers security from the moment they start a job rather than after a probationary period. These aren't marginal adjustments. These are structural reforms that business groups have opposed precisely because they would redistribute power and potentially increase labor costs. And that's the crux of the political challenge Phillipson is volunteering to take on. She's promising to be the person who ensures these measures don't get diluted during implementation, who fights off any attempts at watering down the legislation, who maintains pressure even when it becomes politically inconvenient. That's a remarkable commitment because Westminster's history is littered with bold promises that gradually eroded through 1,000 small compromises. Phillipson is essentially saying she won't allow that to happen, not on her watch. The question now is whether this pledge will secure her the deputy leadership and, more importantly, whether she'll have the political capital and institutional support to actually deliver on it if she wins. Union endorsements are crucial in this contest, but governing is a different beast entirely. Cabinet dynamics, parliamentary arithmetic, business lobbying, media pressure, all of these forces will test her resolve as she becomes deputy leader. Her success or failure won't just determine her own political trajectory. It will signal whether Labour and government can actually deliver transformative policy for workers or whether the gravitational pull of centrism and business interest proves too strong. This is the kind of political drama that reveals what governing actually means, the gap between campaign promises and policy delivery, the tension between different constituencies, the personal courage required to maintain commitments when pressure mounts. Phillipson has made her position clear. Now we watch whether Labour's structures, Starmer's government, and British politics more broadly allow her to fulfil that promise. There's plenty more to unpack as this contest develops and as Labour's approach to workers' rights continues evolving. Subscribe to UK Connor so you don't miss the next chapter of this story, because Westminster never stops serving up compelling political theatre with real-world consequences.